Hello and welcome to Effin' Fridays with Francine. I am excited to be here this week. This week is a little different. You're going to hear what's on my mind. So, I am by myself this week. I am excited to be here and I want to share with you what's on my mind this week. And I I want to I want to let you guys know where I've been. So you've been still my podcasts have been dropping because I did a whole bunch in advance, but honestly, I have been recovering from surgery since October 8th. So it will be a month. This podcast is airing on November 8th, and it will be a month that I have been recovering from knee replacement surgery. It's been a rough month. I'm not gonna lie. Um, I have been having a lot of joint pain for years and putting band-aids on it, right? Getting cortisone shots, trying to do things to make it feel better, eat better, uh, exercise more, but it's really hard to do that when you're in pain. It's really hard to be motivated to exercise. It's hard to be motivated to eat healthy sometimes when really I just wanted the comfort. Last year at this time, I had my hip replaced. And I chose to do that first because at the time my cortisone shots were masking the pain of the knee, and the hip was a little bit less stable, let's say. I would be walking and it would just give out on me, which was kind of, a little scary to know that your body just is not supporting you. Um, I looked at a lot of, um, the energetics of everything, right? My whole first chakra is just not supporting me. I will eventually need my other knee um, replaced, but I'm hoping to get a couple of years out of it. Um, but my hip, my knees, the bottom part of my body is not supporting me. So I did a lot of healing on what that is and looking at things a little differently when I did my knee versus my hip. I've been on a journey of personal development, spiritual healing for probably 15 years. And I am still a person sometimes that just is checking things off my to-do list. And I realized last year with the hip, that's what I did. I kind of just checked things off my to-do list and just had the hip done and went about my life. And what happened after my hip surgery was I had my hip surgery in October, as later in the month last year than I did my knee, but I got sick every single month for 6 months. I mean, I got the flu, I got COVID, every time I got more and more sick. What I realized was I didn't really take the time to actually pay attention to the gravity of removing a part of my body and replacing it with a foreign substance in my energy system, in my physical body, in my energy body. So this time I took the time to actually do some healing around letting go of the knee and being grateful for the support that it has given me for 50 years, many, many years. And I welcomed in the new knee. That being said, it's been a rough couple of weeks. Um, the reason I want to get on here today to um, to talk about my journey is this opportunity that it gives me for receiving. And I know a lot of people that I work with, a lot of women. I don't know that I have ever come across one woman who's like, yeah, it's super easy to receive. Absolutely. I always ask for my needs to be met. It is not the normal conversation that I have with women. And if it is, if you are one of those women, please reach out to me. I want to have a conversation with you because I think it's such a beautiful thing. And I learned it, gosh, I don't know, it was probably 8 years ago. I was with a friend in Starbucks. And at the time, I had been laid off from my corporate job. So I was on unemployment or whatever. And we were meeting for coffee. And she was going to buy me my coffee. And I said, no, I've got it. And she said, no, I want to buy you coffee. And this went on, me fighting her, her wanting to pay for it, probably 3 or 4 rounds of I've got it, me saying, no, I've got it, her saying, I want to buy your coffee, and me saying, no, no, I've got it. And then she stopped and looked me dead in the eye and said, just say thank you. And in that moment, I was like, whoa. I can't let someone buy me a cup of coffee. What else can't I receive? That was such a powerful tool, like it was just such a powerful moment for me because I'm the person who would buy everyone a cup of coffee without even hesitation and with no expectation of anything in return. Yet I couldn't let someone, now granted, it was a Starbucks, so it wasn't cheap, but still, I couldn't let someone buy me a cup of coffee. Like, what the actual fuck is wrong with me that I couldn't let someone buy me a coffee? From that moment on, I have learned to just say thank you. Now, has it been easy? Fuck no, right? I still hear sometimes what I want my response to be. I have a jacket coat that I've had for, gosh, I don't know, 10 years. It's kind of one of those timeless things. It never goes out of style. Every single time I wear it, I get compliments. And for years, my first response was, yeah, but it doesn't have pockets. Because I couldn't just say thank you that you liked my coat. Now, I still get compliments. My brain will still sometimes say, yeah, but it doesn't have pockets. But now I say thank you. And that's it. I don't need to justify this jacket. I just need to say thank you for the compliment. I taught a workshop at the beginning of this year on gratitude through receiving. And I talked a lot about this receiving. And what I have learned between my hip replacement last year and my knee this year is this true sense of surrender and being able to receive because it is such a hard thing for most women to do. And what that looks like is actually asking for help. You know, I had some people say, what do you need? And I'm a person who needs connection. So the isolation over the last few weeks, sorry, feels like months, but the isolation that I have felt over the last few weeks of just being home by myself and my husband, who has been amazing, has been tough. So when people say, what do you need? I'm like, I just need somebody to like maybe come visit me or pick up the phone and call me and see how I'm doing. Right? That's all I really needed. Right? Because I got everything else. And as much as it's been lovely to have my husband here, I still need that outside. One of my top values is connections. So the isolation has been really hard for me. Um, and I've had to learn how to reach out to people too, right? So when someone asks, what do you need? I'm like, hey, can you come have lunch with me? That would be great. I would love that. And then receiving it and allowing it. Um, I hear so often people talk about not being able to take care of their physical health. Sorry, I needed to take a sip of water. That was me taking care of my physical health. Um, I know so many people that need some kind of medical treatment or surgery, and they say, I don't have time for that. Uh, I can't afford that. Don't get me wrong, I'm self-employed. Taking a month off, now I've eased back in, but I am certainly not at 100%. I don't even know that I'm at 50% right now. So the financial aspect is real. And I also say I can't afford not to take care of myself because there's a couple of things. If I'm not taking care of myself, what message am I teaching my clients? Because I teach my clients how to take care of themselves. What message am I saying to my body? You're not worth me taking care of you. You're not worth me shutting down for you. And surrender has been, I talk a lot about trust and surrender. And those have been some really big things for me that I've had to learn and practice over the years. And I call myself a control freak in recovery. So letting go of control and allowing myself to heal and progress as I need to without controlling it, asking for help, not pushing through. Like there are times that I ask my husband to help put on a sock because sure, I can do it, but it takes a lot more energy. A little bit better now, but a week ago, it took a lot more energy, right? So why push myself? Why force myself to do things that don't make my body feel good? Yes, healing from this, I'm doing a lot of physical therapy and I need to push myself so that I can have full range of motion when I'm done. But I can also ask, hey, can you go get me a glass of water? Because I just sat down and I really don't want to get up again. And that's okay. And feeling okay about that. And some days it was easier and other days not so much. I felt guilty that my poor husband couldn't get his work done because as soon as I sat down, I needed something else. But I had to ask for what I needed. Surrender isn't about giving up. It's about allowing things to unfold as they're meant to be, right? So, and trusting that my body, my soul has the wisdom it needs to heal what it needs to heal, right? So, surrender isn't just throwing your arms up in the air and saying whatever, and it could be, but it's also trusting that whatever happens is for your highest and best good, right? I have learned a lot about myself over the last few weeks. And I learned a lot last year when I was recovering from my hip. So I had a little bit of practice last year when I had the hip done. And there's still parts of me this year that wanted to resist the help, right? I can do this. I'm frustrated that I can't do this on my own. And I've allowed myself to receive. I've allowed myself to let others help me. And I think I've actually heard from people that they've recovered from knee replacement surgery in days. And I question how much of that was I can't sit here, so I need to push myself. And 5 years ago, 10 years ago, that would have been me. That absolutely would have been me. I got shit to do. I don't have time to sit here and eat bonbons and watch trash TV. But today, I know the importance of taking care of myself. I know in the long run, this is going to be better for my highest and best good. I think one of the things that strikes me in this whole process is I don't want to say I don't care, because I do to some extent, but I've allowed myself, if you could see what I'm wearing, for those of you on video, you can see from my neck up, but I'm in, like these pants that have holes in them. they're not capris, they're not shorts, they're not full length. And I left the house today with those on to go to physical therapy with these ugly shoes that I can slip on. And if people are going to judge me, let them judge me. Um, about a just shy of 2 weeks, maybe 10 days after my surgery, there was a celebration for somebody that was close to us that it was he had passed away a couple of years ago and it was his birthday. So some people were getting together and I wanted to make I needed to get out of the house because here's the thing, the isolation, I also had to be aware of how it was affecting my mental health. I want to talk about that for a second. I'm going to go back to the story, leaving the house. In the first couple of weeks, I couldn't shower every day because it was just too much effort to get in and out of the bathtub. And I was feeling really isolated. I was very aware that my mental health was being affected. Um, and I was doing things to try and I was still on medication. I was still on the pain meds. But I was really aware that my mental health was taking a toll. I noticed on the days that I took showers, I felt better. So I forced myself to take, that was one of the things. Didn't take showers every day because it fucking hurt to get in and out of the shower. But when I realized so this particular day that we were getting together to celebrate this friend, um, I hadn't taken a shower in 3 or 4 days. I mean, don't get me wrong, I was sponge bathing, but I hadn't taken a full shower. And I had decided that morning I wasn't going to go. I hadn't left the house in 10 days and I didn't think I could handle it. But when I got out of the shower, started to feel a little bit better. And part of me forced myself to go to the restaurant, the bar, or the restaurant that people were at. I couldn't drink because I was still on pain meds, right? That wasn't my point of going. I knew I wasn't staying for a long period of time, but I knew I needed to be around people. And I only stayed, I think, an hour. I couldn't sit because at the time I couldn't sit on a bar stool because I couldn't bend my knee. So I just stood with my crutches for about an hour. But being around people truly nourished my soul. But going back to not caring about what I looked like, um, I had on these loose pants, but they were capri-ish length, and I still had compression socks on. So I have black pants, white compression socks, black shoes. I'm stunning. And I walk into the restaurant and both of my sisters looked at me and went, "Really?" And I was like, "Yep, don't even care." Right? Because you know, 10 or 15 years ago, I would have really cared about what I looked like. But to me, I wasn't there to win a fashion show. I was there to be around people that I cared about. Today, I have very little makeup on. This is probably the first podcast I've ever done. For those of you on, listening, I also do this on video. So on YouTube, I have very little makeup on, but I don't care. I'm sitting on my sofa, not the best visual, right? I don't have my light, the whole bit. But is that what's really important? No. What's really important is that I wanted to connect with people. I really want to connect. And if me not having full makeup makes a difference, you're not my people, right? Um, my sister's making fun of me. I mean, if you have sisters, that's just what they do. I probably would have said the same thing if it was the other way around, right? But I was like, yep, this is what I'm dressed like. Take it or leave it. It is what it is. So I'm curious, and I would love for people to send me a comment in the chat what your thoughts are. I know how challenging it can be to take care of ourselves. I had an experience last year where I had an event I was going to go to. And at the last minute, I changed my mind and decided to not go. And I think it was 3 days. So I had blocked off 3 days of um, not being somewhere. And I allowed myself, I got up on the first day and kind of, I went to read a book and I started to feel anxious. And I thought, well, that's interesting. But what happened was I got up and said, okay, I've got to go do some work. And I stopped myself and I thought, well, wait a minute. I have nothing scheduled because today is not, it wasn't a work day. So I actually wanted to explore it. So I started tapping. So for those of you that don't know what tapping is, it's EFT, it's emotional freedom technique. It works on the subconscious. So I did some tapping, and tapping is such a powerful tool that I use with my clients to really get to what's underneath those conscious thoughts. And I did some tapping, and what came to me was my worthiness is attached to what I do. I am a doer, and people reach out to me because they need things from me. And I have attached that to who I am. So sitting and doing nothing for 4 weeks can be challenging. And I've learned to not attach myself to that being my worthiness. Some days it's easier than others. And there's this level of practice that needs to happen. And tapping helped me tremendously in my healing. It also helped with the pain. I would just tap on the pain. I had a friend remind me of that, right? Sometimes we forget the tools, but remembering the tools that I have in my toolbox truly helped me get through this. So, the biggest takeaway that I wanted to share today was how the power of receiving can allow so much growth for you personally, physically, spiritually. And it's something we have a really hard time doing. And often we have to slow down and stop and recognize how uncomfortable that feels and sit in that discomfort. Oftentimes we don't allow ourselves to allow ourselves to be uncomfortable, to sit in the discomfort. Last year, when I had that awareness of the unworthiness, it was because I allowed myself to sit in the uncomfortableness. I recognized I was feeling uncomfortable, and I got curious instead of doing. Oftentimes, I talk to my clients about how doing is I think, one of the worst addictions there is. Now, I know drugs and alcohol and food are really bad addictions, but I think the difference is when we overeat, we're considered fat. When we drink, we're a drunk. When we do drugs, we're an addict. But when we do, we usually get an atta-girl or an atta-boy, but you usually get accolades and recognition for doing. So there's a part of you that actually gets that dopamine hit and it makes the addiction okay. And it's not until we get forced, right? So don't get a forced shutdown like me. You get forced to not be able to do anything. And I'm grateful that I've had years of practice and I still need the practice, right? Because my go-to is to do. It is a practice for me to sit and to surrender and to receive. So I'm inviting you to really ask, where in your life can you practice surrender or trust and open yourself to fully receive? Where do you need help, right? Oftentimes I will say to clients, so ask for it. And their response is, well, I'm not going to get it. Asking isn't about getting it. Asking is tapping into your vulnerability. Just because you ask for help does not mean the other person is required to give it. Your job is to ask for what you need. The other person's job is to decide whether or not they can give it to you. They're two very different things. Just like when somebody asks you for what they need, you actually get to decide whether or not you can do it. And if it doesn't feel in alignment with who you are and what you want, and you still do it anyways, I would just invite you to check in and ask why. But asking for what you need is really a true test of vulnerability. And we can't be in relationships if we're not willing to be vulnerable. So it's a practice. So I invite you to ask, start small, but ask for what you need this week. And I would love to hear from you and let me know what comes up for you when you ask for what you need. Was it easy? Was it hard? Did you want to throw up? Because when I first started practicing vulnerability, ooh, I wanted to throw up every time I had to ask for what I needed. So this episode of Effin' Fridays was brought to you by What's on My Mind. And if you found today's episode valuable, please subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast with anyone else who might benefit from this message. Your support really helps me to reach other souls on their spiritual journey. You can stay connected with my community on social media. All the links will be in the show notes. You can visit my website at foreverchangecoaching.com for additional resources, upcoming events, and more ways to stay inspired. There's a resource on my website to find out if you are ready for your next big ass up level. There's some journal prompts for you to answer. Usually, I pull cards at the end of every podcast, but once I sat down and got myself all snugly on my sofa, I realized I didn't go into the other room to pull a deck of cards, and I let that be okay. So I'm going to invite you, if you have your own cards, pull a card for yourself today and just really tap into the message that it tells you. I like to knock on my deck 3 times before, shuffle them, and see what falls out. Just ask, what message do I need? And just let that be your message for today. So until next time, continue to shine your light and walk in peace and love. I am Francine Tirrell, teaching you, hopefully, how to receive a little bit more in your life. This has been Effin' Fridays with Francine. I want you to have a fabulous rest of your day. Thank you for being here this week.